Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Music Bar None. So this month's edition is very close to my heart for many reasons. We are jumping over several centuries from the normal type of music. So normally we play medieval and Renaissance music, but we're going all the way to 1723, one of my favourite years. It's a good vintage. And to my favourite city, London. And also, I've had a wonderfully nostalgic afternoon listening to all the Baroque oboes and Baroque bassoons being played, because that is, in fact, my original instrument and what I played a lot before the pandemic. It's what I came to Basel originally to study. So I wasn't sure whether it's nostalgia or like PTSD, one of the two. Yeah, so I'm really, really happy that we have Bruderholz Barock joining us with Baroque oboes and Baroque bassoons. And that's Alek and Julia. And they're going to be playing some trio sonatas and some duets from 18th century London by various different composers. And London will always be a very multicultural city. It's one of the reasons I love it so much. I'm not going to go on a political rant about Brexit, but I am going to acknowledge the fact that we really benefited from all the horrendous colonialism that we did during the 19th century. But let's just say, in the 18th century, London was a bustling, hustling city. We had a German king on the throne. The most popular type of music was Italian opera. It was being composed by the most famous composer, who was also German. And there were many, many musicians coming to London to live and work from all over Europe. And that's a little bit the theme of the last concert program that Bruderholz Barock created. It was called London 1723, and it was really to explore all these composers living and working in London at the time. So I think I've spoken enough. I'm going to pass you over to Alek, who will tell you more, and the rest of the group, who will tell you more about what they're going to be playing today.
Thank you. So the first piece we're going to play a movement, the opening movement from a trio sonata by Johann Heinrich Roman, who was a Swedish composer, otherwise known as the Swedish Handel, who studied in London in the early 18th century. And I think when you hear the piece, you can really obviously hear he learned a lot from Handel. And so we're going to play that piece first. For our second piece, Yuli and I are going to play a duet by Francesco Gimignani, who was an Italian composer and a very famous violinist, and who came to London and also played in Handel's orchestra. And originally it says it's a duet in F major for flute or violin. F major, though, for flute is not really maybe the best key, but for oboe it works quite well.
Guys, it's sounding great. It's sounding great, and because it's so thirsty work for playing double reeds, I'm already going to cut in, and we're going to start making the cocktail. So I'm just going to do a tiny bit of furniture arranging to facilitate this. And I have so much to say about this cocktail, I really almost don't know where to start. I've written a list, and I'm just going to work my way down the list of all the points that I want to say. And the first thing is, I'm really, really delighted to have Alek with me today. He is such a good friend. We've been oboe colleagues for a long time, and we share lots of passions together, like we love perfume and stylish things, and most importantly, we love cocktails. And we're often found propping up a bar somewhere in Basel, either trying to get tips from the bartender or trying to give the bartender tips, because we've now reached such heights that often our own cocktails are better than what you can find in Basel. And also, you're such a wonderful supporter of Music by None. I really appreciate that you're often sitting there on the other side of the camera, supporting the project. You've also been this side of the camera interviewing for me sometimes, which has been really, really great.
Well, thanks for having us and our ensemble.
It's wonderful that now you can be playing as well.
Sure,
so it's great. So, as today was obviously a very special event, I wanted to really find a very special cocktail. And there was some elements I knew I wanted to include. For instance, you may or may not know, but in 18th century London, there was a huge gin craze, and in fact it was absolutely ridiculous. Apparently half the harvest of the time was going to make gin and spirits rather than going to feed the population. There was 17,000 gin providers, gin shops around London. Enough gin was made that every adult could drink 4 doubles every day if they so wished. And it was actually basically it was a drug. People were dying on the streets because of it. Women were selling their children, turning to prostitution. There was murder, thievery, all sorts of I think I can understand. I'm not so far off myself, but so So it was really. I really wanted to include gin today because it was an important part of being an 18th century person. And obviously, we're in London, and another thing that you find in London is tea, especially Earl Grey, which is a tea fragranced with bergamot. It has a really special, very fragrant, citrusy, floral smell, and it gives Earl Grey its very special qualities. Anyone in Basel, go to the London Tea House. They have the best tea there. That's where I found this one. So, and then I was really, really lucky that Miro, Alek's partner, discovered the most perfect cocktail for us. It's called an Earl Grey MarTEAni, and it involves a gin which you infuse with Earl Grey for 2 hours, and that's the basis of the cocktail. And it was created by a female bartender in New York she is very famous, and she's invented a lot of really famous cocktails. And it's also, she has lots of connections anyway with this because her parents came from Switzerland.
Are from Switzerland, yeah, Audrey Saunders. And then she grew up in Port Washington, Long Island, which is like a half hour from where I grew up on Long Island too. So
it felt very fortuitous to have discovered this cocktail. And it's super simple. I've pre-mixed some here. It's basically you take gin, sugar syrup, and then originally lemons, but I decided to be extra fancy and I got bergamot, which also has a story. I really wanted to be fancy and I wanted to use bergamot in my cocktail instead of lemons. And I went like dark webbing trying to find where I could find this special fruit, but none of it would be delivered in time. And then I thought, in Basel, we have this fancy shop called Globus, and I thought, oh, maybe they have it. So I rang them up, and they did. So I went down to Globus, and I bought all the fruit that they had left. And I felt so smug. You cannot believe how smug I felt. It was just perfection. Until I got off the tram, popped into my local round-the-corner supermarket to pick up like bread and milk. And the first thing I see in the fruit aisle is just a huge mountain of bergamot. So obviously they're in season at the moment. Go and get your bergamot if you want to stock up. So not only is this cocktail perfect for the theme of the evening, it's also very seasonal. And we're ticking lots of boxes. So yeah, the cocktail is this infused gin with sugar syrup, the fruit, and an egg white. And I have pre-made some here. This has lemons, which is the original recipe, and this has bergamot. We're going to do a compare and contrast. And we're just going to shake it. We're going to do what's it called?
Dry shake.
A dry shake, which means there's no ice. And it gets really messy because the temperature of the ice makes the seal happen. And if you don't have the ice, it can get really messy. We need some background bassoon popping to do. So, and then hopefully we can take the lid off, which might be the flaw in this plan.
It's always,
And then we're going to add some ice for a wet shake. I'll tell you what, I'll give you this. I'll give you this one. You can shake it and I'll have a go at this. I know why I will never have a YouTube cocktail channel, just because everything is so messy.
I don't know if you can see the color, but it's got this sort of beautiful orangey apricot color.
it up with the lemon.
This is
That's
the
the
lemon,
small one. And if you're interested in knowing a bit more about how this cocktail was made and also what Alek and I think about putting on concerts and events and music, there will be a parallel video called Behind Bars where last night we were testing out these cocktails, checking the measurements and having a chat about how we think concerts should be. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a link down in the description. Wonderful.
Last night we did try, instead of the egg white, this vegan egg white substitute. And
it's not worth being a vegan.
Yeah. I don't know, the egg white.
Just for cocktails, give it up just for cocktails.
I don't know. This foam you can only really get with egg white.
And I'm just gonna do a little twist of citrus. Just to bring my cocktail alive. Oh, that was good. Oh, I wish I had a camera. That was so beautiful. Yeah. It was like the whole foam got speckled with all the oil. That's for next time. We need a cocktail cam. Let's see. Yes. Oh, wish you could see this. Oh, marvelous. So, wow, it's the best. So therefore, Julia and Julia. So the big question is, do you want lemon or do you want bergamot?
This looks great. Special. Bergamot.
Well, yeah, I think you do that.
Now is the chance. I've never tasted bergamot.
So thanks, guys.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for the beautiful music.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I have to say, I'm really super enjoying sitting there, hearing all this lovely double read-ness. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful on the other side. Yeah, so we always tend to have a little chat now with the musicians who've come to play, and I'm just always really curious. Like, being a musician is such a special thing. How did you guys fall into being a musician in the first place? What was your did you have a sort of a road to Damascus moment, or was it just by default you ended up never stopping? Or
I mean, I had played oboe, especially modern oboe, as a student for a long time. When I was a kid, and but I didn't take it that seriously for a while, for most of the time, and then I saw an early music concert in New York City, and they were playing Zelenka and Bach and things like that, and I was like, wow, this is such cool music. Like, then I knew it was the first time I had heard Baroque instruments live, and then I just knew that I wanted to learn Baroque oboe.
Yeah, I had something similar with I was playing recorder a lot as a child, and I was on holiday in France, and we went to a random concert, and someone was playing like the Vivaldi Sopranino concerto, and I just remember being on the front row and being like, that's what I want to do with my life. Yeah. I mean, of course, now I'd rather die than play the Vivaldi Sopranino concerto. I probably couldn't play the Sopranino. But
when did you start with the recorder, though?
That was my first instrument. That was like
5 years
yeah,
old?
exactly. Like my mother gave me a plastic recorder, and we learned it together.
Just the same thing for me. And then I had the recorder teacher, and then they said, "Oh, you are a blowing person. Like I'm able to blow." And then there was one teacher of oboe, and I just went there, and it was the instrument. I didn't really choose it. I've never heard it before.
Yeah.
But I like the teacher. Yeah. I like the sound. I like the lesson. I've watched it, and I started oboe.
Same here. I was playing recorder, and we went to, suddenly, after a few years, I went to the local music school, and there was a very kind of bossy man was in charge, and he said, like, recorder, you can't just play recorder, you have to play a real instrument. And I remember sitting in his office crying. And then I don't know if I'd even heard an oboe before, but I just knew I didn't want to play flute or clarinet because that's what everyone else plays. So I just picked the most obscure wind instrument I could think of, and just and that seals your fate somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, for me, it was definitely an interest in oboe or bassoon, and I still can't really explain why I knew that those two instruments were connected, but for sure they are. And here I am, 30 years later,
still trying to work out
hanging out with oboe players. But I wanted to play one of those two instruments, and I was in band class and signing up for the instruments, and I said, I want oboe or bassoon, and I couldn't make a sound out of the oboe reed because it was so small, and the bassoon reed was easy. And I signed up for it, and I talked to the band director. I said, I really want bassoon, like.
And he was like, yes.
And finally, I thought everybody wanted to play bassoon. And I was the only bassoon player for the next 3 years, but until we went to a bigger school. But, yeah, for some reason I wanted one of those two instruments.
Exactly. So I think that's the question. Like, just between us, we're all double reed players, and I know there's a lot of double reed players in the audience. What is it? What is it about double reed, the sound of a double reed, that just is the best?
It's very clear. You can make a lot of dynamic. It's really personal thing. Sorry,
I think it's this sort of vox humana quality. You know, if you it's I think the most vocal of the wind instruments.
Yeah,
you can really shape
the sound. Yeah,
and then you realize too that the repertoire is pretty cool. The more you study and play, and then I think that's also a motivation.
Yeah, we're very lucky for our repertoire. It's a very long period that you can play all the way into the.
Guys, even I was just at an exhibition in London, an instrument makers exhibition, and there was a guy who had started to make aulos, which is like a double reed aulos, and he even had a bone. They found like a really super, like thousands and thousands of years old bone with 2 holes, and they know it would have had a reed, so he's reconstructed a reed, and so now I own this like crazily old bone oboe. Yeah. Basically, you have to be careful how you say that.
Wow, cool. You should try.
Yeah, I mean, double reed is
double
really
reed is just been a fundamental way of making music.
Yeah. And there are a lot of colors as well. It just seems like an almost never-ending palette of colors that you can make. And of course, we get into reed making. There's
never getting boring. No,
it never gets boring.
Always
hard.
challenging with the reeds.
Yeah. Yes. If you don't know out there, we tend to make like the double reed that makes the sound. We make it ourselves, so it fits our specification. And you're not allowed to have a hobby as a double reed player. all your energy and time is just put into making these.
It's really tasty, by the way.
Thank you. It's my new favourite cocktail. Yeah. Yes.
Did you have it with bergamot last night?
Yeah, we did the same. We tried both. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I really recommend trying both because I'm not entirely convinced. I think maybe lemon is doch better.
I'm partial to the lemon.
Yeah, I think maybe I tried to make something more complicated than it actually is.
Oh, lucky you.
Yes. So, in fact, why don't we get on with the rest of the concert? Because then we can do more experimenting with these cocktails and the audience here afterwards, and we could have a competition to see who prefers lemon and who prefers bergamot. Yeah. So, cheers, everyone. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. You can just take it.
Cheers.
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 What a cheers.
I finished mine.
Cheers.
I'll leave you to set up the stage. It's going to be great for the reeds now.
the concept for the program that we had about 2 months ago was the first half of the concert was music by composers who worked with Handel in London in the early 18th century. So we had Roman and Gemignani, but also MarTEAni and Pépusch
Galliard.
and Galliard, some of the Bassoon sonatas, and so it was very, very interesting to sort of hear the context in which Handel, the musical context in which Handel lived, and I think we were all kind of charmed by these pieces and by these composers that many people don't know or don't hear. And they were all musician composers too. MarTEAni was an oboist. Galliard was also an oboist and violinist, as I mentioned with Gemignani. And then the second half of the concert was Handel. And what was really interesting for me also, I kind of got a lot more respect for Handel. I mean, I've always had respect for Handel, but sort of hearing Handel after you hear sort of the normal music of the time is really quite
A difference.
yeah. So we will play 2 movements from Handel Trio Sonatas now. Originally actually written for 2 violins and continuo, so we've arranged them a little bit, but mostly they work quite well on oboe as well. So the first movement we will play is Largo in B flat major from the G minor Trio Sonata. I think it's the 8th Trio Sonata. So for our last piece, we're going to play a fugue from the Trio Sonata number 7 in F major. And it's a pretty cool fugue, it really is. And it has a special surprise at the end of the movement. Something that I think, in the context of the music we've heard tonight, only Handel could do.